I'm Huon Hooke, this is The Real Review, and today I'm talking to Anthony Rose in London. And Anthony, of course, is our London contributor to The Real Review, and he's just released a new book on sparkling wines of the world. It's called Fizz, with an exclamation mark, Champagne and Sparkling Wines of the World. And Anthony is on screen now. Good to see you, Anthony.
Hi, Huon. This is the book, and very nice to see you too.
So this book, Anthony, is, how many books have you written now? The last one I read of yours was about sake, because you're not only a wine writer and a wine expert and judge, but you're a sake educator and judge and writer as well. How many books have you written?
Since I stopped writing for The Independent in 2016, I thought I would start to write books, which is something I've always really wanted to do, because it meant that I could get up when I wanted to rather than having to be told when to, and or not get up at all if necessary. So I was very much my own man, and I did the sake book. It was published in 2018. It's Sake and the Wines of Japan. And then the publisher asked me if I'd like to do a book on champagne and sparkling wine. And as it's, a labor of love for me, and B, clearly the most interesting, fastest growing category in the wine world today, it didn't take me very long to decide to say yes.
Well, it really is a very dynamic and fast-growing section of the wine market. And of course, you're living right in the middle of one of the most dynamic and fast-growing areas, and that's England. How many, was it a great temptation to fill the book with entries on English wine and really, make the world sit up and take notice of English sparkling wine?
In a sense, it was. On the other hand, I didn't want it to be sort of party pre, if you see what I mean, on with giving special favours to England, because I think that I wanted to be fair to all the burgeoning wine industries around the world, not least Australia and Tasmania, where, we judged together at the beginning of 2019, and I was very impressed by what was going on there. Other countries like South Africa, Italy, very much a growing country when it comes to sparkling wine. And I don't just mean Prosecco, but I think quality sparkling wine as well. And other countries that we know less of, that needed a light to be shined on them, like Canada, for example. I think, quite an exciting sparkling wine country there. So to a certain extent, it was a temptation, but I had to rein in my enthusiasm, if you like, to make sure that I was fair across the board to everyone.
People assume that it was the French in Champagne that basically created bottle fermented sparkling wine, but it wasn't, was it? You talk about the real history of it in your book.
Yes, I think that, you talk about Dom Perignon, and everybody goes, oh yes, he was the monk who invented champagne. But actually, he started in the late 17th century at the Abbey in Auvillers. And before that, there was very much a move towards the discovery of sparkling wine in the UK, for example. Christopher Merritt presented a paper to the Royal Society in the 1660s or 70s, I think it was, when he talked about sparkling wine and the way that by adding sugar or fruit, you could create a secondary fermentation. And he got that actually from the cider makers of Hereford. The cider makers of Hereford were already making a sparkling drink. And one of the restrictions, the limitations on all that, of course, was the fact that they didn't have strong enough bottles generally to prevent the bottle from bursting. But Sir Kenelm Digby and a guy called Mansell invented the furnace, the really hot furnace, to create what the French called verre anglais, English glass, which was then strong enough to be able to hold wine or cider as it fermented for the second time round. But it took a long time after that before you got to the stages of the secondary fermentation that we know and love today. It wasn't until the 18th century, even the 19th century, actually, that this whole process of tirage, that is, after the first fermentation, adding sugar to create the second fermentation on a routine basis, really took hold. So the whole process really was never a single invention. It's always been a series of discoveries over a long period of time, dating from the mid-17th century all the way through to the 19th century.
Sparkling red, that thing that's, beloved of so many Australians, fizzy red, sparkling Shiraz, whatever you call it. We used to call it sparkling burgundy. Is there a place for that? And do you like it? And does it get a mention somewhere?
Oh, yes, it does get a mention. Yeah, it does get a mention. In my introduction to Australian sparkling wine, I talk about Australian sparkling reds made from Shiraz, and the fact that, in fact, when I first came to Australia in 1989, I went to James Halliday's and he produced what was called a sparkling burgundy at the time and explained the whole rationale as to why it was called sparkling burgundy, because it was a traditional drink, and after a while it started to resemble burgundy in appearance and taste a little bit, and that was fascinating. And we had a bit of sparkling Australian Shiraz over here in the UK. There was a bit of a mini craze.
Anthony Rose, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and Anthony's new book is called Fizz, Champagne and Sparkling Wines of the World. It's just been released. It will be on sale in your bookshops in time for Christmas. Anthony, it's been a pleasure talking to you and great to see you on the screen.
Likewise, Huon, pleasure to talk to you as always, and very much hope to see you in the UK in the spring.
Hear, hear.